is Nicole, and it is time to wrap up my two last reading month of 2018. In November and December I've read 8 books. One of them was a graphic novel, which is not unusual at all because everyone is rushing to finish their Goodreads challenge in the last 2 weeks of December. And there are a few romances / contemporaries and thrillers, which are usually easy to read, as well as some bigger books and fantasy books sprinkled through. The first book that I finished in November was Waiting in the Wings by Melissa Brayden, and Melissa Brayden is a known author in the FF reading circles. It is not the first Melissa Brayden I've read. She writes very low-stakes, drama-free romances, which are not exactly my type of romances. I prefer them either angsty and slow burn, where I also enjoy specific tropes such as enemies to lovers, where the drama is also very heightened. I really wanted to get on board with Waiting in the Wings because it is a beloved novel and a lot of people recommend it. But as well as with the previous Melissa Brayden books, for me it lacked drama, and I also don't enjoy how Melissa Brayden writes sex scenes. So I gave Waiting in the Wings 3 stars. I enjoyed parts of it, but it wasn't my favorite. The story follows Jenna McGovern, who has been training for stage since she was little. Her dream is to be on Broadway, so when she gets an opportunity to audition for the hottest Broadway show, she feels incredibly blessed. She passes the audition and gets the role of the main villain in the production. It's Jenny's biggest job yet, and she's going to play alongside Adrian Kenyon, who's a famous television star. This Broadway show turns out to be a fantastic opportunity for her, and she gets very close with Adrian, so close that they become lovers. But after a hit that the show is, Jenny is offered a lot of other jobs that could potentially tear Adrian and her apart. I would say that the biggest tropes / themes in this book are job versus love life and The One That Got Away, which are not my favorites. If you enjoy those, you might like this novel more than I did, because I can't say that there was something wrong with it in particular. The next book that I finished, though, quickly became one of my favorite retellings. The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kiersten was genius. As you may guess from the title, it's the retelling of Frankenstein, and Frankenstein is an interesting novel that is still very present in our pop culture, so retelling it right in a new and inventive way is difficult, but I think Kiersten White got it under her belt. This had fantastic characters, great storytelling, an interesting angle, and a point of view character that I absolutely adored. She tells the story of Victor Frankenstein, the inventor, and the monster that he created from the point of view of Elizabeth Lavenza, who is adopted into the Frankenstein family to entertain Victor. And I absolutely loved all the relationship dynamics that developed in this story. It's a very Slytherin book because both Elizabeth and Victor are very distinct Slytherins. They're very smart and calculated, and they're loyal only to certain chosen people. The theme of chosen family is the red thread that is coming through the whole book, and it is one of my favorite themes in fiction. But coming back to Elizabeth, who I cannot stress enough is a fantastic character, because the story is told from her point of view. We are not immediately given access to who Victor is as a person. In many early passages, Elizabeth admits that Victor has a darker aspect to him, but she never fully delves into it because of her personal relationship with him, and because he's a reason why she was taken out of a bad situation and given a new life, which she enjoys and wants to maintain. A lot of the reasoning behind Elizabeth's actions are motivated by her desire to survive, which is a very interesting narrative to read. Then I've read one of the most disappointing books of my reading year, which was One Day in December by Josie. I've read it for another video that is going to appear on my channel at some point. A lot of people really loved it. It has a very high rating on Goodreads. I think it's 4 point something, which is a lot. I gave this book 2 stars, and I struggled between 1 star and 2 stars. So you can tell I didn't like it. It's an MF romance novel, and I'm very picky with MF romance novels. The love interest has to be on their best behavior for me to like them. And the love interest in this book was a piece of turd. He was terrible. I hated him so fucking much. But let's start from the beginning, which is a summary. It is a romance novel with a dual point of view. The first point of view is of a young girl named Lori who doesn't believe in love at first sight. One summer day she sees a dashing man through the fogged up window in the bus and immediately realizes that he's the one. They miss each other, and after a few years the man, whose name is Jack, reappears as Lori's best friend's boyfriend. The second point of view is of Jack, and it's one of the reasons why I hated this novel so much. I could have done without his point of view, to be honest, because for the most part of the book he acted like an asshole and he treated Lori and her best friend Sarah like crap. So it was very hard for me to feel for him. Very hard. First, let me say what is working for this novel. It is wrapped up in the classic rom-com wrapping paper. So a lot of tropes are there, and I suspect if you love them, you're going to eat the story up. And I also really enjoyed the writing. Josie can write well. It was very cinematic and fun and reminded me a lot of the first Bridget Jones movie. What is not working for this novel, except for the shitty love interest, is also how much this novel relied on accidents. I think there are 3 instances in total, which is a lot, where people ended up ill or injured. I know why it's done. It's supposed to raise the stakes and it's supposed to make the characters rethink their choices, but repeating the same plot point many times in a book is not a good way to do it. The other thing that I also disliked is how much you have to suspend your disbelief, because yes, with these types of plots, love at first sight, you have to suspend your disbelief at least a little bit, because love at first sight doesn't exist. It's a completely made-up concept that was created by rom-coms. But in many scenes we are asked to believe that Lori meeting Jack and their love at first sight moment is supposed to mean more than an actual relationship that Sarah and Jack have. And it bothered me. So I see why people that have higher tolerance for shitty love interests would enjoy this book. I just didn't. Then I picked a thriller slash a mystery novel, which was One for Sorrow by Sarah A. Denzil. The story follows Leah, who is a nurse in a high-security psychiatric facility and who is appointed to Isabel Fielding, a famous child murderer who in her time made the papers. Isabel at age 14 killed a 6-year-old named Macy Ershow and was found near the body covered in the girl's blood. A lot of people still don't believe that the murder was committed by Isabel, and as Leah spends more time with her, she also starts suspecting that someone else had their hand in this murder. At this point, I think it's a pretty basic plot. A lot of mysteries and thrillers are trying to tackle the sociopath or the psychopath character, and it's not unusual, and it's been done so many times with a different degree of success. I don't want to comment on this particular part, but I do want to say that this novel brings a few very interesting plot twists that I have not expected to see. I gave this novel 3 stars, and without giving much of the plot, I just thought that the ending wasn't conceivable enough. Another romance novel and another 3 stars. The Marriage of Unconvenience by Chelsea M. Cameron, which I had been very excited about, turned out to be not my cup of tea. This novel has a fake marriage trope, which is one of my favorites, but also it's a friends to lovers romance, which I hate. I can debate with people for hours why I find it so unsatisfying. Yes, it brings in the angst because you could lose a friend over it, but it's also extremely boring because it's not two people that are getting to know each other, it's two people that already know each other and I'm supposed to care for some reason. So going into it, I hope that the fake marriage trope is going to overrule the friends to lovers romance, and it really didn't work for me. It follows a girl named Lauren Bowman who has financial troubles and who is bitter over the fact that her inheritance is not going to be given to her until she finds someone to marry. One day she discusses it with her best friend named Cara, who also experiences some money issues, and they come to an extreme decision to fake marry to get the money and split it. The premise is great, I'm not going to lie, it really made me interested and I enjoyed the development of the romance, especially in the second part of the novel. But the first part of the novel just wasn't doing it for me and the middle felt a little mushy. Because nothing really happens there. We just know that Kara starts questioning something, but we don't know what. And her going to therapy and then not talking to Lauren about what she talked in therapy about is not enough plot for me to be invested in the story. So I really struggled with my attention span. And then I really loved the last 50 pages. So maybe if you are into fluffy romances, into friends to lovers, you're going to enjoy this novel more. I loved the dynamic between the characters, especially by the end of the book, because it was cute, it was wholesome, but the fake marriage trope that was promised to me wasn't satisfying enough. And then I finished my November's Patreon book of the month, which was City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. It's a middle grade book about a girl who can see ghosts. I found it very charming and lovely. It was about friendship and it's something that I miss a lot from young adult and adult books. Cassidy was a nice character to read from. Her parents were properly eccentric, as all the parents who are into esoteric things are supposed to be. They are given opportunity to make their own TV show and they're moving to Edinburgh to film the first episode, and Cassidy starts to experience a lot of troubles with her powers because there are just too many ghosts in Edinburgh. I love the setting of this novel. I really love Edinburgh. It's one of my favorite cities. Scotland is fantastic in general, but Edinburgh is as if it had not been touched by time. A lot of descriptions of the city sites I've recognized and it made me enjoy the novel more. But I also just loved the relationships between characters. Jacob, who is a ghost that saved Cassidy from dying in the lake, and because of whom Cassidy now has these powers and this ability to talk to ghosts, was a wholesome, beautiful character that I really loved, and his friendship with Cassidy is precious and warms my heart. The only thing that I didn't like about this book was the final showdown. I think it was a little unsatisfying. I've expected something more of bigger grandeur. I wanted something huge to happen. It was very low scale compared to the Schwab's other books. So I give this book 3 stars. Then I've read a graphic novel that I've been saving up for dark days. It was Heartstopper Volume 1 by Oseman. I became a huge fan of Oseman after reading Radio Silence. I think it's a fantastic book, and Heartstopper is just lovely. It's cute, it's wholesome, it's fluffy. The relationship between the boys is not over-sexualized, it's very wholesome. Wholesome is going to be the tagline of this video. And I also really love her drawing style. It is a story that follows Charlie Spring, who is in year 10 of the Truro grammar school for boys. His past year was not fantastic, but at least people stopped bullying him for being gay. He sort of has a boyfriend who is very mean to him and only wants to see him and make out with him when they are hidden from everyone else. So when Charlie meets Nick, who is in year 11 and in a rugby team, at first he's a little apprehensive. But Nick turns out to be a kind, gentle giant and a great friend, and Charlie can't help but fall in love with him. The story actually alternates between both of them, and we see their relationship bloom into something more. I really like them as characters. They have a lot of chemistry together, and their relationship is goals. The last book that I read this year was Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha and Ngan. It was also my Patreon pick, but for December. I already posted my book talk for this book, which is full of spoilers. You can check it out. I'm going to link it somewhere on the screen. Girls of Paper and Fire is a fantasy novel that is inspired by Malaysian culture and that has a prominent FF romance. I really liked it, although before reading it, I've heard that it's a very generic young adult fantasy and reminds people of other court fantasies. But I have not read a lot of court fantasies, so I've had no issue with the way the plot was developed. I was fascinated enough by the world building that I have not cared for certain plot twists being a little predictable. The descriptions in the story were very lush and I enjoyed the writing style a lot. To summarize this novel in a few sentences, it's about a world where people are separated in castes. There is a paper caste, a steel caste, and a moon caste. The paper caste is regular humans, the steel caste is humans mixed with demon parts, which are animal parts, and the moon caste consists of full-on furies, so anthropomorphic animals. The demon caste is the higher caste in this world. They hold the most of power and the most of money and the most of influence. There is a tradition that is used to keep the paper caste, so the humans, fear the ruler of the kingdom, who's a moon caste. Every year 8 paper caste girls are chosen to serve the king as concubines. This year there's going to be a 9th girl named Lee, who was taken out of her home as a special gift to the king. This story has trigger warnings for sexual assault and rape, and it's clearly stated at the start of the book, which I really liked. Overall, at times I found the story predictable, but there were certain elements that I have not expected to see, so I liked that. And I also really enjoyed Lee as a character and her developing relationships with other girls in the court. As always, without spoiling much of the ending, it felt a little cheesy and cheap, but I liked other storylines and characters enough to give this book a 4 stars. That's all the books that I've read in the last 2 months of 2018. I hope my 2019 is going to be fantastic in terms of reading and in general. In the comments down below, tell me about the books that surprised you in 2018. Thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you soon in my next one. Bye!